What's up, everybody, and welcome to the Vermintide 2 Mercenary Weapons Tier List video. God, that's a mouthful. How y'all doing? Today, I'm going to be starting in D tier with the Mace and Shield, and I really don't like this weapon for a couple of reasons. The first one, if I'm going to use a shield, why is the shield bash coming second in the sequence of motions? This doesn't make any sense. The shield bash, where you pick up the shield and you kind of just push it right in the enemy's face and you kind of say, haha, motherfucker, fuck you, and you kind of push them, right? Why does that not come first? That should always be first with every shield weapon, but this one is second. You take the mace and you kind of do like a side swipe across the screen and then you bash, which makes little sense to me because everything's already pushed to the side. So whatever. That's bad. And then it's low damage. It's pretty low damage. It's okay for like pushing a horde around until you get some armored guys, and then it kind of really struggles. I would never really use this that much. Not my favorite. Not really very good. Also in D tier, the single mace. And then this one's actually got decent speed. I think it's got an extra stamina shield, or maybe 2 extra stamina shields. So decent defensive capabilities. Like if you're using charge attacks and you're getting headshots, it's gonna do actually pretty decent damage there. But where it really struggles, like it says that it's meant to be a crowd control weapon, right? But the motions for this are like almost like a freaking 70-degree downward angle to the right, and then a 70-degree downward angle to the left from the left, and then like a complete like upward motion, also at like a 70-degree angle. So I'm like, how is this for hordes? This weapon makes no sense to me. I've never understood it. And again, it struggles against armor. Not much to say about it. It's pretty bad. Bumping up to C tier, the regular old sword here. This is kind of old faithful. I remember when I first started playing the game, I was using this weapon. Oh man, good times. It's actually got decent motions. It'll go across the screen for you, like a horde dealing weapon is kind of supposed to do. And it'll actually do decent damage. You can get headshots and everything, but it really struggles against armor and shields. You're basically useless against armored enemies with this weapon, but you're actually quite effective against unarmored. So it's kind of like a double-edged sword there. Also in the C tier, the sword and shield. Now this one I like more than the mace and shield because the shield bash actually comes first. You can kind of stagger everything, and then the second charge attack is like a little like a thrust with the sword. So if you get a headshot with it, it'll actually do a pretty good amount of damage, and then it's like another side swipe after that. But the only thing about this is when you're poking out, trying to get a headshot is much more difficult than like say taking a hammer and kind of coming down on top of somebody's head, an enemy's head. It's just a lot more difficult. So this one does take some practice, some getting used to, which is why I have it as low as I do in the C tier. And also sharing 3 roommates in a dorm here, the Great Sword. This is basically the same weapon as Saltspire's Great Sword. I put it a tier lower because unlike Witch Hunter Captain, you don't have the option for extra headshot damage. You don't have the option for like a bleed talent, and you can't tag things, so they don't take more damage. So it's kind of just like base physical damage. Decent motions for a horde, pretty decent range on this weapon, but it's just very average, very kind of unimpressive. It just is what it is, Ugh, whatever. Like, who cares? Bumping up to B tier, the Great Hammer. You gotta love a hammer that has armor piercing, and look at those little spikes on the top of that thing. It's deadly. I like this weapon. It does very good damage. It's a bit slow, but it can deal with hordes and it can deal with elites, so it's kind of versatile in that way. This is a weapon that anybody can pick up and use. It's not that difficult, and you can bully everybody. It has a lot of stagger force, so also, definitely one of my favorites in that regard. But it's, like I said, a two-pronged attack, if you will. And rising above the rest, up to A tier, is the Halberd. I love the Halberd. You have tremendous range with the Halberd. You have armor piercing. You have really big headshot damage with the Halberd. I love it. The motions are a little they might feel a little strange to someone rather new to the game, so it might take a little bit of practice, which is why I have it in A tier versus S tier, a little bit more difficult to use. Also, if you don't get the headshots, which is why you would probably have to practice a little bit, you're not gonna do nearly as much damage as if you're getting headshots. It's like a big difference. So definitely recommend that one in A tier. Bumping up, or staying the same rather, as the mace and the sword here. This is our first DLC weapon. Dual wielding, always has its benefits, and usually they are quite defensive benefits for your character. So in this one, if you're blocking and you do like your push hit attack, right? You'll do like an X kind of pattern, and it'll just totally wipe out like a line of enemies. It's very good for just kind of cleaving through a bunch of things. Like if you're in a panic mode, you just need to kind of get some things off of you real quick. That's a good way to do that. And dual wielding charge attacks also, do decent damage to armor and everything. So it's good in that respect. The motions are also very defensive. So it's like its charge attack is he raises his hands up to the right, and then they kind of come down, and then it's the same thing to the left. So it's pretty easy to use, pretty good defensively and offensively. It's kind of a balanced weapon, I guess, if you could call it that. Pretty good. I like it. Now for the two elite weapons, the S tier. First one is the Tuskor Spear, another DLC weapon for you. This one has great range, pretty big headshot damage. The star of this weapon, in my mind, is what I call the push hit. So you're blocking, and then from the block position you attack, and it's just like a side swipe with your spear. I was watching a video about this actually, and I saw someone in the comments was like, this is like the utility knife of Vermintide 2 weapons, and I totally agree, because this thing can do so many different things. You can stun Chaos Warriors with this over and over. You can knock like an entire wave of enemies coming at you with a single push hit. Couple that with Handmaiden for stamina regeneration. Oh, dude, this thing's unbeatable. It's got good speed as well, pretty good range, like the Halberd. This is a badass weapon. I love it. And then last but not least, the Godly Executioner Sword, a non-DLC weapon for those of you who don't want to pay. This one does massive headshot damage at the cost of being a little bit slower than, say, the Spear or the Halberd, but a lot more damage. Its light attacks are just kind of side swipes, slight angles on some of them, but really good for dealing with hordes. Charge attacks, really good for dealing with elites. You can one-shot a Chaos Warrior with a proper build with this weapon. I mean, there's literally nothing bad about it. I mean, it might be just a tad bit slow for someone that's maybe used to the Halberd or the Tuskor Spear, but Executioner Sword is freaking godly, and that's all really I need to say about it. So that's my list. In S tier I have Executioner Sword and Tuskor Spear. A tier I have Mace and Sword, or Sword and Mace, however you want to say it. Also Halberd in A tier. B tier, all alone, is the Great Hammer. And down in C tier I have Sword, Sword and Shield, Great Sword. D tier, Mace and Shield, and just the regular old Mace, the single girl. Alright, let me know what you guys think, if you agree or if you don't.